Two guys in their early 50s with one dream: to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Yes, welcome back, Andy Walker, for episode 102 of the Missing Links Golf Show.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting episode we've got tonight. I think this is something that we've sort of touched on at different stages, but it's not something we've really dived into yet. It's probably one of the contributing factors for pretty much everything we do on the golf course.
I would agree, and I would say that it has an enormous impact on your game and your outcome, whether you know it or not.
I like that.
I was trying to figure out how I was going to slide that into the conversation. So
nice.
I still don't know whether the Pilgrims have caught on to what our topic is for this episode, Andy Walker.
Well, look, whether or not they have or not, like, we'll just press on.
Yes,
and I'm sure
they like it or not.
So
didn't plan that opening.
It's a bit random.
Oh, Pilgrims. We're going to talk to you about the weather.
We are
not necessarily today's.
Not what's outside at the moment.
Yeah, not necessarily today's. Although relevant, because I have just returned from a sneaky little 9 holes after work once again, and it was particularly windy.
Yeah,
so,
right. Okay.
That's relevant. That's definitely relevant because that's one of the topics that we're going to cover.
With a little was bit it of cold or was it?
No, I wouldn't say it was cold. I mean, as you can see, I've got the sleeveless going. So that was more just as a windbreak than it was anything else.
Yep.
It was pleasant enough. But certainly the wind was blowing, and we're going to talk a lot more about the impact that has on ball flight, your distances, shot selections, all sorts of things. So this is very much a deep dive into environmental impacts on the game of golf.
And, depending where you are in the world, you'll have different weather conditions. Some can affect golf more than others. I know, having grown up at Mollymook and played down there for all my junior golf, when I moved to Sydney, I joined New South Wales Golf Club and had different conditions, very windy. Yes. I don't think I played out there on a still day. It was pretty much the wind blew every single day, and it was good. It was a great playground to learn how to play different golf shots.
Yeah, absolutely. Not easy. I think. Oh no, actually, I personally think rain is harder than wind. That's
definitely,
my view. And that's not necessarily the impact that it has on ball flight. That's the impact it has on me personally.
Yeah.
Everything getting
for sure.
wet, the club slipping in your hand, all those things. I actually find rain really difficult. I think I find wind can be challenging, but I don't dislike it.
The thing with rain, I think you sort of feel as though you need a second set of hands. Because you need to keep everything dry. You need to hold your umbrella. You need to have your towel. You need to be constantly getting your grips dry, changing gloves, keeping everything else dry. So there's a lot more to do and a lot more to think about in rain than wind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But look, we're going to get into this in a fair bit of detail. So if it is something that you have been a bit curious about, what? How much does wind affect it? How much does temperature affect my game? This is the episode for you because we are going to hopefully get a bit of good information out there and also maybe some tips on how to deal with the various weather conditions that you might be confronted with on the golf course. And we'd also love to hear your views and your experiences after you've listened to this episode, drop us a line. Tell us what you agree with, what you disagree with, what your own experiences in different weather conditions has been. Because we've got pilgrims listening to this from all over the world, Andy Walker, and I'm still dying to know what golf in Iceland is all about. So please let us know about that. I noticed last episode actually we once again had a download or two from Lithuania. So
Okay.
I imagine that golf in Lithuania is quite interesting as well. So anyway, I'm curious. Shall we dive into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So where should we start?
Well, I
Temperature?
mean, yeah, temperature is probably a good place to start. I mean, that certainly from our perspective, there's a fair bit between our summer conditions and our winter conditions. Not as much as what there is in other parts of the world. I mean, say for instance Canada, we know that, and certainly Northern America, there is an off season where you can't actually play golf because it gets so cold. But certainly from our perspective, you get up into the warmer months of summer when it can be sort of 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. So that's sort of upwards close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it can get down, well, close to zero, close to freezing, um, uh, which is, yeah, another factor. And certainly when the wind chill comes into it, I remember your game. Was it last year? You had a game at Wentworth
And
Golf Club, and the wind
that
chill
was
was like
cold.
-2 or something.
That was cold, but I don't know if you remember earlier this year in the winter, I played a game at Bathurst
Mm.
and we teed off and it was -4.
Yeah, wow. Mm.
And that wasn't wind chill. That was the actual temperature. That was,
Yep.
I don't know if you remember, Donnie from Bathurst and I were playing in a scramble out there at
Yep.
Bathurst. Yeah, it was -4 when we teed off. We were, I think we got our score down to about 3 under when the temperature was still -3. So we were level with the temperature, which is
Excellent.
pretty
Excellent.
weird.
I know one of the coldest that I ever played in as a junior back at Mollymook. We our pennant team won the Illawarra pennant, and the winner of the Illawarra pennant always used to go and play sort of like a cross district sort of finals match against ACT Monaro, and
Oh,
Ioane Country Club won.
yeah, freezing.
And as it is, we played over in Canberra in the middle of winter, and I remember getting up and it was -2,
Mm.
and that was sort of about sort of 6:30, and by the time we teed off, it had warmed up to zero, and that was pretty cold. There
Yeah,
was still ice on the ground when we teed off.
yeah, yeah. So for the Fahrenheit side of the community, 0 degrees Celsius, which is what we use in the metric side of the world, that's the freezing point of water. So that's 32. I think it's 32 Fahrenheit is
Yeah,
the
32, I think it
equivalent.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, is the equivalent. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Yeah, I mean, look, in definitely in inland areas, you can have pretty significant temperature swings within the one
Mm.
day. Like we certainly at this time of year, when you're in spring and in autumn, where we're getting hot days during the day, and we can already be up into the mid to high 30s, but we'll still be down in the low single digits overnight. So you might feasibly tee off at about 5 degrees early in the like on an early tee time, and by the time
Yep.
you finish, it might be at about 30 degrees. Like that's a
Mm.
pretty significant temperature swing throughout the round. You're not going to get that on the coast, obviously, because the maritime climate is going to keep things a little bit more even keeled over the 24-hour period. But Andy Walker, do you know what cold or colder air does to the golf ball flight?
Well, I mean the cold air is denser than warm air,
Correct.
so obviously the golf ball has more resistance against it. So that's probably the biggest thing. I would also say, given the golf ball, and it wouldn't shrink that much, but there would be an element of contraction to it, which means that it doesn't have the compression, I guess, that you'd be able to get. So there's sort of a couple of different elements, and these are only sort of marginal, very marginal amounts, but it's still enough to have an impact on the distance that you're hitting the golf ball.
All of which is very true. To put some numbers on it, so on the longer clubs, obviously with the bigger stick in the bag, it's going to have the biggest impact.
Mm.
And there is a chart which I managed to stumble across, which suggests that for every 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just over 5 degrees Celsius, change in the temperature, you might see around about a 2 yard, which is around just under 2 meters, change in your driver distance. Now,
Mm.
that's pretty significant when you think about, if you had a 20-degree Celsius temperature shift, like I was just talking about from
Yep.
teeing off, that could be a 10-meter difference on your
Mm.
driver.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's actually starting to get into the realms of making a difference.
For sure. For sure.
Most of it in the normal temperature range is probably not really going to make more of a difference, and so your inconsistency of ball striking at amateur level, but it's definitely enough to start to factor in to thought process. And I would say this: probably the bigger issue that it's going to create is going to not be the golf ball, but it's actually going to be the golfer's body.
Yes. Mm.
Which would be your own flexibility, your own swing speed decreasing because of, being cold, and the amount of clothing that you've got to wear.
Yeah, yeah, and wearing more clothing. I mean, wearing jumpers and or rain jackets definitely does impede your ability to swing freely and your ability to swing as fast as what you normally would have. So there definitely is a big impact just from your ability to swing a golf club. Now, when you start getting to sort of, and I'm going to be talking majority in Celsius, when you start getting to sort of 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, you're not going to really have a jumper on. You might have, like your sleeveless jumper, vest on, and from there upwards, you're really not going to have that much of a difference because you're just going to be wearing your polo golf shirt, whereas it's more the colder temperatures where you're going to have more clothing on.
What do you think about the importance of a warm up, Andy Walker, in colder conditions? Something that you
Oh,
should bother with,
it's as well, probably more important than normal. I mean, I rarely, if ever, jump on even a practice round. I know that you had 9 holes a couple of days ago, and you just jumped straight on the first tee
yeah,
without any practice. I rarely do that. Even 2 or 3 hits into a practice net is a must for me, and it's really injury prevention, as much if not more so than what it is, that you want to score well on the first hole.
yeah, absolutely. And pilgrims, if you're interested, I did run straight from the office to the golf course, and basically teed off just to get in front of another group because I was there on my own. Um, Zero warm up, zero preparation, made double on the first,
Mm.
unsurprisingly, but then went on to finish the 9 holes at 3 over. So
Mm.
it was okay after that.
Yep.
Andy Walker, what do you think? So we've talked about warming up your body. What are your thoughts on keeping your balls?
Golf balls warm.
I don't even say it. Oh, I realised that halfway through the sentence where that was
Yep.
going, and it was not where
Yep.
I'd intended. Yeah, what are your thoughts on keeping your balls warm, Andy Walker,
Keeping your balls nice and toasty.
to avoid shrinkage?
Look, I mean, it's important.
Mm,
However, I have to admit it's not really something that I've ever focused on. I don't have a golf ball warmer as such. I know you can buy your little sacks to to have your
Sorry,
balls
this has
in.
devolved into a primary school conversation already. Um,
So you can buy golf ball warmers to keep in your golf bag on a cold day. It's not something I've ever really, I guess, given too much thought to, but in doing a little bit of research for tonight's episode, I did actually come across that and went, oh, that's interesting. It's probably something that I should consider, keeping the golf balls a bit warmer.
no, I think it's good advice. What I would also say is good advice is if you're thinking of jumping on the interweb after listening to this and doing some research on ball warmers, probably don't do it from your work computer. Just save that one
Mm.
for the home PC. Um, so you can like one thing I use in winter pretty religiously actually is the little hand warmers that you can get at the
Mm. Yep.
local hardware store. Because I mean that feeling of hitting
Mm.
them thin on a cold day
Yep. Yep.
is just horrendous. I think they're really important. I wonder if you could potentially just drop one of those in your in the pocket where you keep your balls in your golf bag.
Mm.
Um,
Potentially.
may work. I don't know. Might try it out.
Mm,
Might be
mm.
good.
But
But
but yeah, I mean, there was a couple of recommendations that you keep your golf balls like in your shorts or slacks pocket. But I would find that to be a bit distracting. I've got obviously tees and pitch mark repairers and my ball marker in my pockets. But yeah, having my golf balls in my pocket, I don't. It's not something that I would find comfortable. I don't think. I did used to have a set of mitts that, and this was when I was down at Mollymook.
mm,
Now I'm a little bit further north. I don't have the cold weather issue as much as what it is down there now. Mollymook's probably, on average, maybe 3 or 4 degrees colder than what it is up at Lake Macquarie. So yeah, in the middle of winter, I remember hitting off on they had have a Thursday comp and hitting off in the Thursday comp at 6:30 a.m. and getting down the bottom of the hill, and it was
mm.
very, very chilly. So I did invest in a set of hand warmers, just some mitts that kept my hands nice and toasty and had some, so I could keep some feeling in it. So I think that's really important for cold weather.
Yeah, I think it is. They really are a good idea. Like I say, I use the little, they're like little pouches. You kind of break them and they and
Mm.
they they stay warm for sort of 5 6 hours,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
generally enough, and that just stays in your pocket. Actually, feels quite nice in your pocket as
Mm.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Now, I do want to come back to one thing that we talked about a little bit earlier, and that is the distance loss, especially in cold weather. I think that because again, doing a bit of research, I saw some similar numbers, but I also think it's a little bit of an individual perspective and something you've got to figure out yourself, because I've found that those numbers, cold weather doesn't impact the distances I hit as much as what those numbers were suggesting. So,
mm,
say for instance, on average, we'd play, say, at 25 degrees Celsius. For me, getting down to about 15 degrees is probably half a club. And sort of when you get down to sort of, 10 or 5 degrees, that's when you're sort of getting to be a full club. So, I think they were suggesting that 10 degrees was about a full club. Whereas, yeah, for me, it's a little bit more than that. Sorry, it's
oh,
not as much as that.
yeah, no. I would agree with that. I know, there have been a few days when I know I've played in really, really cold conditions and talked about a couple of them, and the ball just goes, it feels like it just goes nowhere.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
in reality, though, I still think a lot of that is related to your body and not just the impact of the temperature on the golf ball.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
yep.
and I think there's a bit of a tipping point in that, like say from 25 degrees to 15 degrees. In 15 degrees Celsius, it's still really pleasant golf weather, you know, really. So and especially if you're walking the course rather than riding in a cart, you probably
Mm,
won't be wearing a jumper. But when you're getting down under 10 and certainly getting anywhere close to zero, it's really quite brutal.
yep.
And I think it drops off really fast. I don't think it's a
Mm,
lineal decrease. I feel like it's pretty much the same, and then it drops off a cliff
mm,
when it
mm,
gets quite cold. That's
yep.
personal experience, but like I
Yeah.
say, I think that's more about me than the golf ball.
Yeah. And the other side of that is that I find that heat doesn't impact my distance
No,
gain
no,
as much as what the cold impacts my distance loss. So
yeah, no,
again, I think this is
I agree.
something that with experience and with playing the game more, you get to know your own tendencies and get to know your own game. But yeah, it's good to understand these things in a general sense, and some of the numbers that you see on bandied about on the internet. It's good to have that as a guide, but again, I think, it's about getting to know how you react to different temperatures and how your game and your swing reacts to those variances.
I just can't wait the next time that we have a game of golf together. And, sometimes you'll see guys that step up and, hit their 7 iron, they come up a little bit short and they go, oh, geez, there's a gust of wind just then that knock that one down. Just
Yep.
do the same thing. 7 iron comes up a bit short. Oh, geez, Andy Walker, I feel like the temperature dropped a couple of degrees just as I hit that. That'd be gold.
Yeah,
That,
not sure that'd have the same impact, but
that's
we'll
really taking
give
excuses to the next level.
give it a crack, see how it goes.
Yes, yes, very good. But on that topic, I feel like that's probably enough on temperature. If you're happy to move on to wind,
Yeah, and wind is one. It's a really interesting one because most people, especially into the wind, the way that you deal with hitting the ball into the wind is the complete opposite of your natural tendency to try and hit it harder.
yeah. That's true. That's absolutely true. Um, and also the amount of impact that wind has on your ball flight as a headwind versus a tailwind
Mm,
it's about a 2-to-1 ratio, the
yes,
difference, right? And that's
correct.
where, you'll hear people say, oh, it's about a one club wind today.
Mm, mm,
And are therefore applying that where they go into the wind, they're taking one club extra.
yep,
And with the wind, they're taking one club less
less. Mm,
and wondering why they're still coming up short
mm,
because the headwind will have twice as much impact on you for distance loss as the tailwind will on distance gain. And in fact, sometimes a tailwind without, no, I will get into the detail of it because I think it's, that's the whole point of this episode, isn't it?
yep,
So
yep,
into the wind, obviously you have that wind resistance, but it increases ball spin,
correct.
which is going to force your ball higher into the air.
Mm,
The tailwind will actually decrease the spin on the ball, which is going to encourage the ball to fall out of the sky.
yep,
And what it
yep,
will also mean is that into the wind, when you're increasing spin, you're going to be stopping much faster. When you're downwind and it's decreasing spin, you're going to get more rollout. So you won't necessarily get more carry distance. You will get more rollout.
correct.
Yep.
Mm,
I got that
yep.
right. I'm sure I got
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right.
100%, 100%.
Yep.
And that's the thing with hitting it into the wind is that if you don't want the wind to affect it as much as it otherwise would have, you really need to focus on tempo and swinging the club, a, a bit more smoothly and with a bit more tempo to take spin off it, so it
Mm.
actually flies through the wind easier than like and as we know, if you're hitting down on the ball and we're hitting it harder, that's creating more spin. And it's not just backspin we're creating, it's also side spin that we're
Yeah.
creating. So not only is the ball flying higher because there's more side, well, not more side spin, but the side spin is accentuated. It's also from a dispersion perspective,
Mm.
you're going to have a greater dispersion. So
Mm.
that's why when you're into a headwind, and especially a strong headwind, you're wanting to take a bit of spin off the ball rather than trying to hit it hard.
Where you might hear the likes of David McClelland say things like, when it's breezy, swing it easy.
Yes. Yes.
And that is an oldism that I think is absolutely correct.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what you're trying to do. Take the extra club, 3/4 swing, less spin on the ball, and you will penetrate through the breeze much, much better. I also think in just as another aside, when you find the center of the club face, the breeze does have less impact on your ball flight
Correct.
than any kind of a miss hit.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm
Yeah.
sure
And
is spin related.
yeah, yeah, it is, and well, it's not only that. It is that, and if you think about your, if you're hitting it out of the center of the club, and you're into the wind, you're imparting less side spin,
Yeah,
generally speaking,
yeah,
than what you would have if you've hit it out of the toe or out of the heel. So that in and of itself is going to make the ball pierce through the wind better than what it would have with a miss hit.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So putting some numbers on this, right? Because I think that is helpful. One of the websites that I was looking at in researching for this episode was saying, well, a few websites actually, it seems to be pretty common, is that for a headwind, it's roughly 10 miles an hour of wind speed is a one club difference.
Yep. Yep. So what's that, about 16 kilometers an hour? It's about 1.6, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a one club difference. Um, Probably true. I don't know. Not
So
really.
are they talking about, you said headwind, so hitting it
Headwind,
into the wind?
specifically
Right.
headwind. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So some other stats that came up from the PGA Tour was that a 30-mile an hour headwind, that's very strong. So
Mm.
that's nearly 50 kilometers an hour. That's a
Yep.
very strong wind.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
On the PGA Tour, reduced carry with a driver by 75 yards on average.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it's a very strong wind, so I think that's fair enough. But using the same wind, 30 miles an hour, so 50 kilometers an hour as a tailwind, only increased carry by 44 yards. So that's that
Okay.
roughly kind of 2 to 1. It's not quite 2 to 1, but it's around about that. And
So
that's
when
PGA
they're
Tour.
saying about like a 10 mile an hour headwind is one club, is it consistent? Is it sort of 10 mile an hour one club, 20 mile an hour two clubs, 30 mile an hour three clubs?
Well, I don't have that detail. I think it's a really good question, and I'd be curious if the Pilgrims know any more about this. But I also would have thought that it would start to make more of a difference and have more of an impact on carry distance with clubs that you're hitting higher with more spin,
Mm, correct.
i.e., wedges.
Mm, yep.
So you're going to start to see an increase in gapping through the bag, I would think logically.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And there were certainly times at New South where I didn't pull my wedges out. I was maybe pitching wedge, but I was always hitting either 9 iron or 8 iron, even from 80, 70 meters out. So it was, yeah, there were times where I was quite literally trying to land it short of the green. And you see that in links golf a lot as well,
Yeah, yeah,
in
absolutely.
that you,
Absolutely. Play the ball on the
the way
ground.
you're playing links golf in those conditions is you're trying to get it on the ground and run it up to the flag and up to the green. Now that obviously, if you're playing a links type of golf course where you've generally got an open front to the green, that works. But if you're playing on a golf course where there's bunkering around the front of the green, that doesn't quite work. So you've got to take a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, crosswind. Crosswinds are interesting because they have a bit of a different impact on ball flight. Obviously, it's not the same in terms of um, magnifying spin and therefore costing you distance or adding distance. It's more about impact on dispersion and aim points. Although I would probably argue that there are differences in crosswinds. I don't have
Mm.
any data to back this up. This is just an experience thing, right? And I'm interested in your view on this as well. And it might be to do with your natural shot shapes too a little bit. But I find left-hander, a wind that's blowing across from right to left is going to effectively create a slice shot shape, right? I find that has more impact in pushing my ball left than a left to right wind will push it to the right. Um, Interestingly, and I've played with some right-handers, and the same can be said for the opposite winds. That usually, when it's pushing the ball away from you in a slice direction, it seems to have more of an impact on ball flight than the opposite.
Mm. Yeah, and
And
I
I don't
think
I don't know if there's any science to
I
back that
think
up.
the reason for that is the vast majority of golfers slice the ball. So there aren't many golfers that hit a draw, and I'm hitting a draw now. I was hitting a fade. I was trying to hit a fade in my younger days, but certainly at the moment, I actually find the opposite. So if I've got as a right-handed golfer, if I've got a left to right wind, I find that with my current shot shape, I can hold it up against the wind easier than when it's a right to left wind, with a right to left wind and with it pushing with my shot shape. Because there's the other side of the coin is do you try and then fade the ball into a right to left wind as a right-handed golfer and draw the ball into a left to right wind as a right-handed golfer? And I'm, to be honest with you, my game's not at that point where I can consistently do that. So I generally play the same shot shape for every shot. However, I take a bit of a similar approach to an into the wind shot where I will try and take spin off the ball, especially for, as a right-handed golfer, a right to left wind hitting a draw.
So I reckon it's mental as much as anything else, and and it's a little bit to do with the last point that you made about taking spin off the ball and approaching it a bit like a headwind. In the same way that it is that it is kind of tempting to try and hit the ball harder into a headwind, and obviously you have all the negatives of that with the increased height and increased spin and everything, lose more distance. It's I think for a lot of people when the wind is blowing across in the slice direction, it's tempting in the downswing to actually try and counteract that, and by doing that, you come
Mm.
over the top and you actually
Yep.
create more of that side spin.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
and I,
Yep.
and I actually think that happens, and I think you know through my experiences today when I was hitting drives with the wind blowing in that direction, and there was a couple and interestingly though, there were a few that were dead straight until just as the ball lost speed and it started to fall down, and then it actually
Mm.
moved it quite a bit, and it didn't move it quite so much when I was going in the other direction, and I was loading up on those feeling super confident about ripping
Yep.
it
Mm.
with the ball going the other way, and I think as a result put a better swing on it. So I think what you're saying is true, but it's also probably easier to um, to not deliberately, but change your path to a bit more over the top when you're trying to fight against a wind that's blowing across you in that direction.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I
I don't
certainly
have any
think that
data to back that up, but that's just
yeah,
anecdotal.
it is easier to hit a shot shape into the wind. So as a right-handed golfer hitting a draw into
Mm.
a left to right wind and holding it up against the wind, it's that's an easier shot than playing a draw in a right to left wind, where the wind is going to move it a
Mm.
lot more than what it otherwise would if you had the skill set to be able to hit a fade, a left to right fade into that wind. So yeah, so it's I guess it's the difference between, hitting a shot that's comfortable or more comfortable than hitting a shot that's less comfortable. Most people will tighten up and probably not have the best mental attitude and mental outlook when faced with a difficult situation. So again, that's something that I think you need to work harder on than working with, with a right to left shot shape into a left to right wind.
Yeah. And look, to be honest, there's probably no substitute for practice on this one, getting out there and actually
Hmm.
embracing those conditions. Because one of the things that you talk about in that is the impact that it has mentally on your approach to shots
Yeah.
and the confidence. And I think one of the points on this is with crosswinds, one of the strategies that's really important is actually really picking and committing to a target line.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you might, because what also I think sometimes happens is with the crosswind that comes across, you might say, well, I'm going to open my stance a little bit and aim up, for me, the right side of the fairway, or for you, the left side of the fairway. But then if I still swing up the center, I'm actually really creating that carving across the ball type action in
Hmm.
terms of open club face to path, which is going to create a larger problem. So if you've got to pick the target, line up to the target, and actually swing to the target. And I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
becomes
But
more
I
important.
think you're right. It's about putting yourself in those conditions more often, and it just comes through experience. Don't you know when it's windy? Don't be scared to go out and still have a game. I mean, you learn so much more in those challenging conditions and how to deal with it. And even if you're having a poor round, don't give up. Just try some different things,
Yeah.
because if you're trying different things in those challenging conditions, you're going to learn for next time and become a better golfer. I mean, I sort of feel a bit fortunate in that, having grown up at Mollymook, where you've got these big, massive gum trees down the
Yeah.
sides of every fairway.
Yeah.
So for me, hitting whether it be a driver or a tee shot, in a tight fairway doesn't bother me that much because
No.
I grew up with it. But also, having played golf at New South Wales for sort of 5 years, I also can deal with windy conditions and that links style of golf fairly well, just because, when it was at its worst, I remember playing New South in some horrific conditions.
Mm.
When no one else was going out in the golf course, I'm like, no, I'm still going out, and would go out and play. And you learn so much more
Mm.
in those challenging conditions. So have a bit of fun with it. I think it's a lot of fun sort of getting out and playing, in adverse weather conditions.
I think that's part of the battle, is actually how you choose to look at it. And, rather than looking at it that, woe is me, this has wrecked my day, it's so tough, but actually embracing the challenge and seeing what you can do to overcome it. I think that's just super important. I mean, we'll talk about psychology in a bit, but it's a really, really important point. No doubt about it. All right. Any other thoughts on wind?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. So, rain, Andy Walker.
Mm,
I
yes.
hate the rain for golf.
It's just miserable, isn't it?
It's just not okay.
And when I say, I love going out in adverse conditions, except
Just
rain.
except rain. Rain, no, no, you can have that.
Yeah, no, yeah, rain's not fun, and I must admit, yeah, I don't have fun when I'm on the golf course and it rains.
No.
It just, yeah, it's not good. In saying that, I won't, if I'm out there and I'm playing golf and it starts raining, I don't walk off the golf course and pack it all in. But yeah, it's certainly my least favorite of all the different weather conditions.
Yeah, it's not cool. I mean, it is cool. That's the problem. But also, I during the drought. we had a horrendous drought here in this part of New South Wales from sort of 2016 to 2019,
Mm.
early 2020, and like so bad that there was almost no grass. Aside from irrigated parts of the golf course, and we would get the dust storms that would rip through Western New South Wales.
Yeah.
It was like you're living on Mars. We played one day, and there was a rain shower that came through, which was kind of unexpected because we're in the midst of the drought. Anyway, I remember we were on the sixth fairway at the time, and this sort of little rain squall came through. I was wearing a white golf shirt,
Yep.
and the raindrops were just leaving all of these little red dots all over me because
Oh
of
no.
it was coming out of the dusty clouds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, random rain story, but there you go. Um, no, I agree. I agree. I don't like rain, and I don't like what it does to the grips of the clubs. I find it very hard to hang on to the club, and spins in your hand as you're hitting the ball, and all sorts of horrible things. But it is interesting actually learning a little bit about what rain and moisture in general, because this might also be relevant, say, to playing in the morning when you've got a very dewy
Yes.
surface. What moisture and a wet ball and or a wet club face will do to spin rates.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing, especially playing in the morning, when there's a lot of dew on the fairway, where you've got to be really careful of the fly from the middle of the fairway. And
Yeah.
I've had that many times.
Yeah. So one of the stats that I read for, say, with a pitching wedge, you can reduce your spin rate. Say, if you generate about 9,000 RPMs of spin, that might drop as far as about 5,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
almost 50% that your
Yeah.
spin
Right.
rates can drop with a wet ball and wet club face.
Okay. I didn't expect that.
It's significant. And that's why,
Mm.
yes, you can effectively get the flyer out of the fairway, which is
Mm.
nuts. And not only that, not only will that affect carry distance, but of course it'll affect what happens when the ball hits the ground.
Yeah.
And it won't stop, and it'll run through. But it's unpredictable because it won't always be consistent. So you can't say like with the wind or temperature, moisture on the ground is going to be a one club difference. Well, it might not. On some shots it might, and some shots it might not. So, it's a difficult, it's an absolute difficult one to manage.
Yeah, and I would say that wetness on the fairway is even more difficult to say the flyer lie, where when you're in the rough and you've got the flyer, you sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, but it's more
Yeah.
predictable out of dry rough
Yeah. I
than
think you
what
can
it is
see it
from the
in the
fairway.
rough. Like you can see where you've got the grass standing up behind the ball, and
Mm,
you're going to trap grass between the club face and the ball. You can be pretty confident you're going to get a flyer. The water is unpredictable. So there's that element. It also, obviously, it impacts on the rollout that you'll get, say, with your driver on the fairway. It will reduce that.
And especially when there's been a lot of rain. I mean, obviously with wet, soggy fairways and greens as well.
Yeah,
I think we've all played on greens that have been wet and sodden. I mean, the PGA Championship this year, the amount of rain that they got before the PGA Championship, the course was sodden, and that was the whole mud balls, and which is again a
yeah.
bit of a different conversation
Well, US
as
Open
well.
at Oakmont, same deal.
Mm.
So there was that definitely happens. Putting on wet surfaces obviously start to get the rooster tails coming up the back of the ball, and
Mm. There's
that just
also less
slows down.
break. So when you're putting on wetter greens, you need to allow for less break, just because of the fact that there is that friction and that extra friction that you've got between sort of the golf ball and the green. So it's not actually taking the break on the green as much as what it would have in dry conditions.
Well, there is that. It's also the physics of, and we talked about this in our putting episode, is that a ball rolling slower i.e., faster greens, because the ball will travel longer time, slower speeds, will break more than a ball traveling fast.
Mm.
And when on a very slow green, water's going to slow the green up. The ball goes really, really fast and then just stops. So it doesn't give it the time to break because it doesn't give it the opportunity to roll slowly for a long period of time. So that is all true for a number of reasons. The other thing that happens as well, which is interesting, is the impact of raindrops hitting the golf ball when the golf ball's in the air. And that can take distance off as well, because it.
No, I've never, I must admit, I've never considered that. No, I mean,
Yeah,
it sort of makes sense in heavy rain, when you've got that sort of downpour, I guess, because generally speaking, in those conditions, I will hit, more of a punch shot rather than a full
yeah,
swing. I mean, that's also, to do with the fact that I've probably got wet weather gear on and all the rest. And again, I'm trying to minimize the impact of the water getting in between the club face and the golf ball. So again,
yeah.
sort of similar to wind, in that I'm not hitting full shots in those conditions. I'm trying to gain a bit more control over the golf ball and the club face.
All good strategies. It does happen though, because if you think about when we're talking about temperature and the impact that temperature has on the golf ball flight, the denser the air is, the shorter distance the ball
Mm.
will travel.
Yep.
Well, when air's got rain in it, it's denser because
Mm.
the water itself is denser than the air. So basically, it's pushing through. It's pushing through this curtain of water the whole way that it's going through.
Mm.
So it actually it does have a pretty significant impact on the
Mm.
distances. So
Yeah, yeah.
and it's difficult to say how much because it depends on how heavy the rain is that's falling and how big the drops are, and all of those wonderful pieces of physics
Mm.
that goes into golf ball flight. But it
Yep.
does have an impact. So I think the rule of thumb is that in the rain, you have got a wide variety of things happening. Some of them are promoting flyers, some of them promoting shorter distances. I think you just need to accept that there's going to be a greater variability in result from golf swings during rainy conditions.
Yep.
And that probably is harder to manage the outcomes and more about managing how you set your expectations about it and picking smarter targets with bigger margins for error.
Mm. Mm. Talk about taking control. What strategies do you employ yourself whilst playing golf in order to mitigate playing in the rain?
Yeah, so I think equipment is the biggest thing on rain, and I learned this. I was playing in a Missing Links Masters event a number of years ago, and one of the guys who played a lot more golf than I had at that time, we'd got to about 3 holes left to play. It was pretty tight, and it just started belting down.
Mm.
And I turned around, and we were out in basically just golf shirt and shorts. So at that point, my strategy was to put on a rain jacket, put the umbrella up, and hope for the best.
Yep.
I turned around and I saw my playing partner, and he at this point was like a full Eskimo. He'd put on the rain pants, the
Mm.
jacket with a hood. He had the two
Yep.
gloves,
Yeah. Wow.
like the full rain kit going.
Mm. Mm.
And over the course of the next 3 holes, he continued to play solid golf. And I continued to have the grip slip in my hands and spray the ball everywhere, and obviously lost the event. And that was a real eye opener. We got off the course afterwards and had a chat about it. And he just said, look, if you're going to play in rainy conditions, have the gear. It just makes all the difference. And I believe it to be true. Like having rain pants is an interesting one, because on a hot day, you really might not want to wear the plastic trousers.
Yep.
And that's probably the least important of the whole lot. Gloves, having wet weather gloves is the deal.
Yep.
And
Yep.
wearing two of them, Aaron Rye style, is is absolutely the go. No
Mm,
question about it. Because at that point it doesn't, and you get the ones that get more grippy as they get wet. So they're a different glove. And that just means you don't have to stress so much about keeping the grips of your clubs dry.
mm, Yeah, look, and I must admit, I'm a little bit different in that wearing two golf gloves. I've tried it, can't do
Yeah.
it. So for me, wearing it on my left hand, being a right-handed golfer, and I've still got that wet weather golf club from that time that we played up in
Yeah.
the Hunter
In
Valley.
the Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
however many years ago that
Yeah.
was, where the four of us went up and had a
Oh,
boys'
didn't it
weekend
rain that
in the
week?
Hunter
Oh,
Valley. And
man.
this was at a time when I was just coming off my 20-year hiatus from playing
Yeah.
golf. I
I
had
know.
no wet weather gear.
I
I
know.
had
That was
nothing. All
so
you
wet.
blokes had stopped and got your sort of rain
Yeah.
jacket and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember I just had a jumper and I got absolutely
And
soaked.
it was
Yeah,
cold too.
yeah. The only
Um,
thing I had was the wet weather golf club. Well, and I tried two. Of course, I'd been down to Drummond Golf at
yeah.
Northmead, and I think I got us all those gloves. And
Yeah,
yeah,
you did. You did. Now, it's interesting that you say that you can't wear them on two hands. The reason is because you're an interlocker.
no, well, I changed. So I'm actually now overlapping. I made the change probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
And
right. Okay, good.
yeah, I'm back. I'm with I always used to be interlocking,
Yeah,
but now I'm overlapping. So potentially that may
yes.
have changed.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's really hard to interlock with a glove on both hands because you just
Mm,
got fatter fingers. Um, but if you're an overlapper or it's the Varden grip, I think that one's known
yep,
as.
yep, yep.
Um, then it's fine. It actually
Mm,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yep. Yeah, certainly. So for me, there are a couple of non-negotiables for me. One of the best things I ever invested in is an umbrella holder for my
yeah,
golf buggy. That has just been like an absolute godsend, just so I don't have to hold my umbrella when I'm walking down the golf course
yeah,
or walking down the fairway. So a really good bag cover that covers the whole bag, but I can still access my bag. The golf umbrella holder where I can stick my umbrella in there, put my towel in the framework of the umbrella. I have couple of different gloves there as well. And then, yeah, just making sure that I'm keeping everything dry. I actually don't have golf wet weather pants. I only wear a wet weather jacket. I've got a good wet weather jacket that I wear, but I find that the pants are just a bit too restrictive. And fortunately, I haven't played in that much bad weather, and I find that well, certainly not over the last
yeah,
sort of 10 years, but
yeah.
yeah, I find that the jacket has done its job. So they're for me the not negotiables.
The reason why I was giggling whilst I was listening to you talking there is that I can't help but think we've got pilgrims from all over the world listening to this show. We have quite a few pilgrims from the UK, and I know from my time over there, the use of the word pants refers to what we would describe as underpants.
Right.
So for them, it's you've got pants and trousers. So I can only imagine how our UK pilgrims are enjoying us talking about wet weather pants.
Yep.
Sure,
Yep.
having
Yeah,
a
I
great
got
old
got me
chuckle.
got me
Um,
wet weather pants on. It's all good. Um, so what about slacks?
I don't
I've got
know.
my
I don't know their
slacks
view.
on.
I'm not sure about their views on slacks. It's more about trousers.
Mm.
Anyway,
But
that's
definitely, if I was playing in the parts of Scotland and Ireland, and it was adverse weather conditions, I would definitely be have a full set of wet weather gear on there. That would be a not negotiable.
you'd be wearing wet weather trousers and wet weather pants. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct, and probably some thermals as well.
Oh, wow. Keep your balls warm. That's all I can say.
It's what the thermals are for.
Sorry, pilgrims. So anyway, look, it's a big one. I think rain is super
Mm.
tough.
Yeah, yeah,
Super, super tough. And it absolutely has a massive impact on score.
yeah.
So I think again, it is a case of, trying to do what you can during those during those situations and hang in there, minimize the mistakes. You know, probably, as you say, swing easy, take an extra club, and try and because again, if when you're not pushing the swing to your limits, you're less likely to spin in the hands and lose your grip and some of those
Mm.
things as well. But get the gear. There's no substitute to give
Yeah,
yourself every fighting chance by
yeah,
having all
yeah.
of the gear that you can to deal with those situations. Right. So we're moving through quite a few of these, Andy Walker. Um, I've got humidity on the list, but I don't know. I just don't know if
I
humidity
think
really makes that much of
humidity.
a difference.
Yeah, look, I think it does more so, not necessarily the different levels of humidity in the same spot, but certainly if you're going to play golf, say in Australia in far north Queensland, that really humid conditions does have an impact on the golf ball.
Yeah, but I feel like it's so small. Like the difference in humidity that you would need to experience to get a meaningful change in any ball
Hmm.
flight. It's just it's almost not going to happen, right? Like, and I think the stat that I've got in front of me at the moment is saying that a movement from 10% humidity to 90% humidity is going to impact a six iron, like an average six iron shot, by less than a yard.
Hmm.
And like, so that's almost the full gamut
Yep.
of humidity swing. And it just has such a small impact on ball flight.
I,
What
I,
it
I
does
think
have an impact on, though, sorry, is comfort level during the
yeah,
round.
and that's what I was going to say. I think humidity is more about keeping yourself, and especially when you're going to those really hot, humid parts of the world. And I recently played golf when I was in Malaysia. Recently played golf in Penang, where it was
Mm.
really hot and humid, and having and not just water, but replacing electrolytes, I think is really important, and
Mm.
keeping yourself well hydrated.
Now, here's a question for you. Do you dehydrate faster in low humidity or high humidity?
Mhm. I have absolutely no idea.
Right. Do Because this is an interesting question, right? Like, because it's fair to
So you're talking
say
about say heat, dry heat versus humid.
humid,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it's fair to say that you feel much more sweaty, like you sweat more
Mm.
when it's high humidity
Yes.
versus low humidity. But here's the trick, pilgrims: you dehydrate faster in low humidity than high humidity because the difference is you're actually sweating the same amount, but when it's really humid, the sweat's not leaving your body because the air's already
Yeah. Right.
got so much water in it.
Okay.
In the dry heat, your sweat is very efficient. It's getting wicked away from your body and it's
Yeah, it's
evaporating into
evaporating.
the air
Mm.
very quickly, which means that the body is actually losing the water. It's being sucked out of the body faster.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and you don't notice it
Mm.
until obviously the impacts of dehydration start to kick in. Um, and that's why it's a bit of a risk, like in inland golf, which I play a lot of, and you get the drier heat in the summers. You can drink a lot of water um, without feeling like you ever need to pee because it's getting drawn out of your body.
Mm. But as I said, I think it's also really important. It's not just water; it's also the electrolytes, it's the sugars
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
you're and whether you get that back from food or whether you get that back from, whether it be an electrolyte drink, I think it's really important to look after both, because
for
you
sure.
can lose energy very, very quickly, especially in hot conditions. Which is why I've always been a big fan of being a snacker, because your body needs energy and it
Yep,
needs that energy to be replaced.
yep. And humidity, high humidity will lead to fatigue earlier.
Mm.
So you start to feel tired and exhausted and low on energy. So all those things are definitely relevant. Never having been a snacker, you've got me on the bandwagon though, and I'm now big on that on the golf course. And anyway, there you go.
Yep.
So that's humidity. Another one, bit of a weird one that probably people won't think that much about because you usually play golf in the same place for the majority of people, but it's altitude, Andy
Mm.
Walker,
Yeah.
the impacts of altitude. So I do play a bit of golf at altitude, not massive altitude, but a bit of altitude. So when I play in Orange, New South Wales is at around about 1,000 meters.
Yep.
Um, so that's significant because the rule of thumb on this is that for every 300 meters, which is 1,000 feet, it's about a 2%, 2 to 3% increase in carry distance.
Mm.
So at 1,500 meters, you're looking at sort of 10 to 15% increase in carry meters, which is pretty significant. Like that
Yeah,
will
it's about
turn
a club to
a
a
bit,
club and a half potentially.
it's about a club and a half. So I would say, I reckon it's probably close to 1,000 meters, give or take, um, is about a club in my
Yeah.
experience.
And that's
So
what I've
from
generally found. I
Orange to the
mean,
coast.
yeah, we've having played on the coast majority of my life. When I have gone to and we've played a little bit of golf in Orange at Duntry League and also at
Mm,
Wenny.
mm,
Yeah, it's about a club distance
mm.
that we'll find that's the difference. I have, and again in my younger days, played a fair bit of golf in and around Canberra. I used to
Oh
love
yeah,
some of the golf
what's
courses around
Canberra?
Canberra.
It's Canberra altitude wise.
I'm not sure exactly, but it's certainly not as high as what Orange is. I think it's sort of around about sort of half. I think it's sort of more in that sort of maybe sort of 600, maybe 700. I'd have to look it up, what it is, but
Yeah. So that's around
it
about
wasn't
Bathurst.
it
Bathurst is
wasn't
about
a
600.
club distance, but it was certainly, I was hitting the ball further, and I had to be wary of the fact that I was hitting the ball further than what I was on the
Yeah.
coast.
Yeah. 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 So it is interesting. And it definitely makes a difference and it is a noticeable difference. And I think of all of them that we've talked about, wind is the most obvious. Um, I think altitude is the next most noticeable difference.
Hmm. So
Certainly over
coming back to Canberra, 578 meters.
pretty good guess then.
Hmm.
About 600 meters. Yeah, altitude absolutely makes a difference, and it's something that at least is consistent. So you can research whenever you go somewhere on a golf trip what the altitude is, and have a bit of a look at that, and factor that into your calculations with your club selections.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, and for me, altitude probably I've got to be the most aware of where I'm playing when I've played at altitude than generally speaking other weather conditions, and I find that impacts my decision making even more than if I'm playing, say, on the coast in colder conditions.
yeah,
I'm
it's more of
I'm
a difference. It's
yeah,
more of a
I'm
difference,
finding that,
definitely.
that altitude, I've got to think about it more and just be a bit more deliberate with it.
Here's another little random fact for you about altitude golf is that the reason that the ball flies, and you'll know this, like the reason that your ball flies a little bit further is because the air's thinner.
Mm.
So it punches through more easily. It's got less resistance. a byproduct of that, though, means that the descent angle is flatter, so it doesn't stall and drop out of the sky as much as it does in normal air. It will continue on, more of an even
So,
arc.
so does that mean that there's less spin?
Correct. So that means it's more difficult to
Yeah.
hold greens.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you'll find it more difficult to hit and stop on a green at altitude than you will at sea level.
Hmm.
So again, something to factor in. You want to be pitching on the green, maybe short of the pin and rolling up rather than, you know,
Yeah, flying it all the way.
flying it there and stopping it. Certainly for par threes, it's something to consider. But again, there's so many variables, right? Because then there you've got the softness of the greens that you've got to take into consideration and all sorts of other things. So
Mm, mm.
nothing is just one factor on its own.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about golf, right? Is that you're taking a whole different set of variables depending on where you're going on a particular day and how the golf course has been set up and what the weather conditions have been leading into that round of golf, which makes golf as challenging as what it is, but it also, it makes it fun, it makes it interesting. So that's all part of the, what makes this game great.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's it's an endless puzzle that you have to keep trying to solve all the time. Which is actually a good segue to talking about ground conditions and roll. Like there's a whole lot of things. Like this is not necessarily weather specific. It can be because it might be in relation to rainfall and previous rainfall and soft
Mm,
conditions, but it's also to do with you might have extra firm ground if it's been dry and hot. Might also be to do with in really cold conditions with frozen ground.
mm.
That
Yep.
that has the same sort of impact. So, being able to think through what that's going to do in terms of bounce and roll and receptiveness to spin, and how you play your short game and some of those sorts of things with ground conditions, I think is also a big one. Andy Walker.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the different conditions, say, that you experience in the PGA Tour the vast majority of the time, and what you've got in Scotland in the links courses where you're landing it sometimes 30, 40 yards short of the green and running it up onto the green, because if you hit it onto the green it's not going to hold. It's going to you're going to up in the bundy over the back of the green, whereas a lot of the golf, especially the week to week golf on the PGA Tour, it's target practice, right? It's just
Mm.
hitting at the flag. And I mean, obviously there are exceptions with the US Open and the Masters if conditions are right. Although again, you look at the Masters. And when there's been a lot of rain leading into the Masters, scores are vastly different than with the hot,
Mhm.
windy conditions that we've seen over the years.
Mhm.
So again, that variability of how you play the golf course and your shot selection will vary greatly depending on how the course is set up, but what the weather has been in the lead up to that round of golf.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So it's a tricky one, and I think the moral of the story on that one is that all of these elements are things that you need to like actively and proactively consider when you arrive at the golf course, get ready for your round, and even during the round as conditions change, is actually just thinking about these things of, all right, well, what temperatures are we going to be dealing with today? What's the wind forecast for today? If I've gone on a weekend away on a golf trip to a different place, what's the altitude of the place that we're playing
Mm.
at? How often do
And
people look at that? Yeah, probably
yeah,
not
and
very often,
and
but
what's the weather been like in the
yeah,
lead up to
yeah,
me going down there? So again, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand, start looking at the weather forecast
that's right.
and seeing what weather has been around for that period of time.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that you can do in preparation for the round to actually try and help and give yourself the best chance. What's the forecast? Should I pack my wet weather gear? Do I do I put on my waterproof pants? How am I going to keep my balls warm? All these
Yeah.
questions,
Do you need to take your big boy pants?
you probably do. All these questions, and even a random one is around the time of day that you're playing with light
Mm,
and the visibility, and as you probably know, as the sun's going down and the angle of the sun's changing, it actually affects your ability to read putts,
mm.
and you start seeing all sorts of imperfections on the green that you might not have seen at lunchtime. So there's a whole raft of variables to consider when preparing for a round of golf. And if we haven't given you enough excuses for why you didn't play so well by now, then we are not doing our job, because I feel like it's a long list.
No, but I look at it, and as I said at the start, I think, what you've got to do is just go out and enjoy it, have fun with it, embrace the challenge. Golf is an outdoor sport played in variable conditions, so it's just getting out there and just in embracing it.
Well, I think that's the critical point, like the mental approach in adverse conditions is just so important
Yeah.
because, I think we mentioned it briefly before, but the scoring implications that adverse conditions should apply on golf scores, like I'm looking at PGA Tour results and there's data on this, is that with all of the various things you go, like, oh, rain, the impact on ball flight and, blah, 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 should create, say a two-shot variation. The reality is that when you add up what the weather should do to scores in adverse conditions, the impacts always are more. And it's not because of the actual impact on the golf ball. It's because of the impact on the player and the player's mind.
Mhm.
And, in bad weather, in challenging weather, a bad round feels worse and it's so much harder to be resilient and to hang in there and grind it out and try and make a score
Mm.
because it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the challenge.
And was it a couple of years ago at the Open Championship? Was it Shane Lowry who said that he actually loved it when weather conditions were really bad and because half of the field are basically knocked out because he knows that they won't be able to deal with those conditions
I
and he,
think it
generally
might have been
speaking.
back when he won at Port Rush.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, and I think it was Shane Lowry, but I'm not 100% sure who it
Yeah.
was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pilgrims. But yeah, he said that, in those conditions, in those really hard, tough, challenging, adverse conditions, that half the field basically knock themselves out because they don't want to be there and they can't deal with the conditions. And he said that he doesn't actually like playing in those conditions. It's not something that he looks forward to, but he embraces it, and he knows that he can compete and can compete well in those conditions. So again, if you take that approach, you know that most people, maybe not most people, but a lot of people will basically play themselves out of the game. Whereas if you've got that, bit of resilience and a bit of, well, it's going to be like this for the next 4 hours while I'm on the golf course, but then I can go inside and, have a shower and, get warm again. But while you're out there, make the most of it.
Absolutely. And you've also got to realize that it's going to be so much harder for everyone in the field. And probably, like if you're not going to shoot your handicap on that day, well, you know what? Probably the majority of the field's not going to either.
Mm.
So don't throw the towel in because, what feels like a bad round might actually be right up the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know?
Absolutely.
So grind it out. I think that's the message. But look, it's been a bit of a deep dive, Andy Walker, into all sorts of adverse weather. Fair to say it's gone in directions we hadn't planned at certain moments, but
But no, it's been a good
you get
chat.
that.
Been a lot of fun, and I think yeah, we play an outdoor sport, and that's part of it. It's not like these cricketers that run off the field in the first sign of rain. We stay out there.
We do. Correct. Uh, no, and look, interested in your thoughts, Pilgrims, please get in contact. And if there's things that you think that we've missed or got wrong, definitely interested to hear all about it. But hopefully there's a few facts and figures in there that maybe changes your views on certain things. I know that, when you learn a bit more about the impacts of weather, it's enlightening. And I know, in particular, the impacts of wind. I think that's been a big one to really try and understand that a one club wind or a two club wind, it's not necessarily a one club or two club wind. It depends which way it's blowing and what shot you're trying to play. Things like
Yeah.
that.
And while there is data there, I also think that the adverse conditions, can bring out your creative side, and that's where you can really show off some artistry and just doing some things that maybe your playing partners can't do if you've maybe put a bit more preparation into it than what they have.
It can absolutely be a lot of fun. Um, very good, Andy Walker. Well, that's been, whether you like it or not, a good chat.
Has been.
Mm. All right. And in that vein, what's the last thing, the most important thing that people really should do when preparing or even after a round in bad weather?
Well, look, I mean, once you've been out there and you've experienced, those conditions, and you've been up for the challenge, and you're just feeling good because you've come in, you haven't given it away. You might have jumped in and had a shower and gotten dry and got into some fresh, clean clothes again. Look, there's really only one thing that you need to be doing.
Yes.
Rock out, Pilgrims.
Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, pilgrims.